Hey everyone, this is Alfred from The Prompted, and today's a great video because we're covering one of the most important steps to any of your e-commerce AI agents, which is how to set up your integrations. Without them, your agent won't be doing too much, but with them, you can create AI agents that can become employees for you that help manage your Shopify store, your Facebook ads, your marketing, and so much more. On this channel, we've already shared a number of agents that help do just those things. But today, we're going to be looking at how to get those integrations set up in n8n. We'll be looking at integrating apps like Slack, Gmail, Google Docs, Facebook Ads, Shopify, and chat models from OpenAI, Anthropic, and OpenRouter. We chose these for this video because these are the integrations we've used most for our e-commerce agents so far. But as we build more powerful agents, we'll also be using more apps. So we'll have a part 2 for those integrations in the future. And if you want to be the first to know when those agents come out, or to get more information on building out e-commerce agents and growing your Shopify store, then check out our free email newsletter. Link is in the description. The instructions for each of the apps are independent from one another, so we'll add timestamps so you can jump ahead to the tool that you need. Just check it out in the description below. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so let's hop into n8n. And so we're looking at a bunch of different nodes here. Nothing's connected, but this is just to show you what we're going to be integrating into n8n today. So up here, we have our Google tools. So you've got Gmail, Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Sheets. If you want to use other Google tools too, then the steps are going to be pretty much the same across all of them. Next, we have our communications app. So we have Slack in this case. And then next, we have our Facebook ads. So we're going to be showing you two different ways using the Facebook Graph API node and then also with the HTTP request node. And then finally, we have our Shopify, which is, again, going to be two different ways using the Shopify node or the HTTP request. Now, with all of these, you could use them as a node in a workflow like we have here, or you can use it as a tool for an AI agent. So for example, if we're going to pull out Gmail, we can add a Gmail tool. It'll be this little circle instead of the square. But the credentials that you're connecting it with are going to be the same. So you set it up for one, you'll have it available for the other. So the steps are all the same. And then finally, we have our chat models. So we'll show you how to connect your OpenAI models, your Anthropic models, or we can use something called OpenRouter, which gives you access to all the different models with one single API key. So that's everything we're going to be looking at. Let's just jump into it. So we're going to start off with the Gmail, node. So we can come into the Gmail node and we're going to create a new credential. And this one's really simple. Just sign in with Google. And then you can select the proper account you want to use. We'll use this demo account. This one, we've already connected it, but normally you would have an option to select what you want to give it access to. And then we're just going, in this case, we'll check this box. But if you haven't connected before, it would ask for permissions to read and write your emails. So just give it access to all of that, and then you continue. And then it'll be successful. So you can close this, you can close this. And now we can actually test it out. So our Gmail is connected. We have our Gmail account that we've, credentials that we've connected to. So I'm just going to connect this trigger. It's just going to trigger whenever I press test workflow. And we're going to set this up. So we are going to send to our email. So essentially what we're doing is we're sending an email to ourselves, right? Because this is the account that we've connected, the credentials that we've connected it to. So hello world, text, and this is a test email. So why don't we test it out? Okay, workflow executed successfully. And let's just refresh this. You can see there, hello world. This is a test email sent 0 minutes ago. So this is the email that we just sent. So that's how you connect your Gmail. You have a lot of other actions you can use with this, right? You can send emails, you can get emails, you can mark emails as read, you know, all sorts of things. But that's how you use the Gmail node. Okay, so let's move on to Google Drive. So with Google Drive, similarly, we'll just create a new credential. But in this case, you're going to see it's a bit different. You don't have the option to log in with your Gmail account right away. So what you need to do is you need to go to the Google Cloud Console. So that's where we're here, Google Cloud Console. Just make sure you're logged in with the right account, and you're going to create a new project. So we can do that by pressing new project there, and we'll call it test integrations, something like that, and we'll create. Okay, so now that's been created, let's come to the menu here, and we're going to go into the library first. And we're going to enable Google Drive API. And, oh, sorry, we're in the wrong project. So make sure you're in the right project. When you create it, you have to actually go to the right project. Because in that case, you saw that we had already enabled it for a previous project. So this time we can actually enable it. So let's enable. There we go. We've enabled our Google Drive. So just to note, if you want to use any of these other Google apps, you can just enable those APIs. Okay, so let's come back up to the APIs and services area. And we're going to go to the OAuth consent screen. We'll get started. And we're creating an app. So we'll call this test, let's say. We're going to use our email. Next. Typically, I like to use internal, but because I'm using a Gmail account instead of a workspace account, there's only the option for external. So we'll select that. We'll put in our email. So let's just copy and paste that. There we go. And let's agree, continue, create. Okay, so now we can go to the clients area and let's create client, and we'll make it a web application. You can call it whatever you like. And in the authorized redirect URIs, we're going to add URI, and we're going to come back to n8n. I'm going to copy the redirect URL here and paste that right there and create. Okay, so now we have a client ID. We'll copy that client ID. We'll paste it in here. We have a client secret, and we'll paste it into here. And you're going to see now that this sign in with Google button is going to show up. If we try to sign in, we're actually going to get an error. So let's just try that right now. Okay, access blocked. n8n Cloud has not completed the Google verification process. So we have one less step that we need to do. So we come back here, you can close that, and then in the audience area, we have to specify who can actually use this app. So we're going to add ourselves in here. So we'll just copy the email, save that in there. And now let's try that again. So we'll sign in with Google. Okay, Google hasn't verified the app. That's fine. We created it ourselves. And we're going to select all and say we're allowing all of this. Continue. Okay, so connection is successful. Let's close this. We can close this too. And now we can test it out. So if we go to our Google Drive, which is right here, I'm just pulling it over. We have, do we have any files in here? Yeah, okay, so we have a test file here. So what we're going to do is we're going to search for test. Okay, so let's just try that. And we're going to connect our trigger to our Google Drive node. I'll move the Gmail out of the way. And let's test this out. Okay, workflow executed successfully. Great. Okay, so we search for test. It finds one item with this ID ending in JPIO. If we open up our file, is this JPIO? Right there, JPIO, right? So it found the file with this ID in our n8n. So there we go. Our Google Drive is now working. All right, so let's move on and connect our Google Docs. So we'll go to create a new credential. And this is going to be very similar, right? You're going to see that it's requiring a client ID and a client secret. So we can actually use the same one we were using before. So let's go back here and we can go back to our clients. We've got a web client 1 that we created earlier, and we can just copy and paste the same client ID and client secret. Now, if you have different apps for different purposes, you might want to create a brand new client ID for this so that you may or may not want to use the same one. But if it's within the same workflow, doing the same function, then you can just use the same one. Sorry, let's come here, client secret, right there. Okay, so we'll sign in with Google. And there we go, continue. Okay, so we are going to want to allow n8n to do all these things and continue. Okay, so let's close this and let's create an app. Okay, so let's, this was created with n8n. All right, so drive name. Okay, so why don't we just connect this first? There might be some issues here that we'll have to resolve. But there we go. Okay. I guess we just had to close it and open it up again because we had just connected this Google Docs account. So we're just going to put it in the root directory. And let's test this out. So test workflow. One item was created. We have a file. Let's go to our Google Drive and refresh. There we go. We've got our new, we've got our new file. This was created with n8n, blank file. And then you can use other Google Doc options to update it. You know, let's say if you want to add certain information in there, you can do that. But we've got our credentials already set up, so you can do it. You can work with the file however you like. Okay. Now let's work with the Google Sheets. And again, very similar, create new credential. In this case, actually, you could just sign in directly with Google. So you don't need to put the client ID or secret. You connect, we give it access. Okay. And now let's create a Google Sheet. So this was also created with n8n. Okay. And let's give that a shot. So we'll just connect our trigger, test workflow, see what the result is. Okay, we've got a file created. Let's refresh. Perfect. We've got a Google Sheet now created by n8n. So that's how we use, that's how we connect all of our Google tools to n8n. Typically, there's one of two methods. Either you can sign in directly, or you need to use the Google Console, Cloud Console, to create a client secret and ID. Okay, so let's move along and let's take a look at our Slack. So in this case, we're going to, again, create a new credential. And here we actually have a couple of different options. So the recommended option is OAuth 2, which we also recommend. But if you want a simple method that has less features available to it, you can do the simple version here, connect my account. So why don't we do this first, and then we'll move on to the OAuth 2 method, which has more of the full features, particularly if you want to use a bot. So in short, if you want to create a bot and be able to message the bot and have it do specific functions based on that, then you can use the OAuth 2. But if you just need a simple bot, a simple feature where it just sends updates into Slack, but you don't need to worry so much about the specific triggers that you're using on it, then you can use this simple method. So we'll start off with simple method and we'll move on. So here, I think we just have to wait a little bit for this button to turn green. Okay, there we go. So we'll allow. And we can close this now. We can close this. And now we can actually send message, let's say to the channel. We'll select our integration demo channel, and we're going to say this is an n8n message. Okay, so we can connect our trigger, and let's open up the... okay, actually, why don't we just test the workflow? Okay, it sends the message. You can see here all this information, which tells us that it, well, right here, it says, it gives us all this identification information, which suggests that it worked properly. We can check our channel. And there you go. This is an n8n message. So you can send simple messages like that. However, if you're using an AI agent and you want to trigger on Slack, so let's just Slack, and we want to trigger, let's say on a bot app mention, then you're going to see here that actually the credentials that we just created, which was called Slack account 6, you're going to see here that it's not actually in this list. So in order to trigger by bot mention, we're going to have to create our credentials in a different way. So why don't we create a new credential, and we need an access token. Okay, so how do we do that? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go into our Slack apps and create a new app, and we'll do it from scratch. So we'll call this n8n integration demo, and we're going to put it in this workspace here. Okay, so we'll head over to OAuth permissions, and we want to install the app, but in order to do that, we need some bot token scopes to be defined. So we'll add a number of them. So what we're going to do is we'll have app mentions read. We're going to do channels history, and I'm just going to add a whole bunch. You don't need to use every single one of these, but we like to just add these ones in because we might end up using it, and we don't have to add them later. What we will be doing is we're going to control how the bot gets triggered in n8n itself. So as long as we have most of these scopes available, then it should do what you want it to do. Okay, so we'll have these scopes added, and then we're going to install, and we're going to install it into the channel that we were using earlier. So we'll select the n8n integrations demo channel, install that. And so you can see here that we've added the app in there. Okay, so now we have this bot user OAuth token, so we can just copy this and we can place it into here and save. Okay, so we've got our token successfully created. And we can actually select the channel that we want. Let's just close this, open it up, and it should give us a list. If not, okay, then we could just do by ID. So we'll find the ID right here, copy it, and we'll just place it there. But before we continue, we do want to add a couple more things into our Slack app settings. So we'll come over to the event subscription, and we want to enable events, and we need to put a request URL there. So if we come here, we're going to see that there's a webhook URL. So for testing purposes, you use this one, but once you activate it, then you're going to need to use this URL instead. So we're in the test mode, so we're going to use this one, and we'll just place that in there. We'll test step. Oh, resolve issues. Okay, what are our issues? Oh, I guess because, here, let's just connect this. Yeah, okay, let's fix this one, doc ID. Let's just put this back to create. Test. Okay, so the problem is n8n doesn't allow us to do certain things if there's errors in your workflow, which we currently have. So I just gotta resolve some of these so that okay, let's just delete this for now. I'll add it back later. And we need let's add our chat model in here. Okay, so let's try that again. Test workflow. Okay, so now we can retry this. There we go. So we need to actually have the trigger listening for the event in order to get this to be working properly. So that's why I had to activate the workflow, get it working, and then that way it's able to recognize that this request URL here. Okay, so we're going to subscribe this on bot events. We're going to add app mention. We're going to add message. Just type it in. Message.channels. And we're going to add message.groups. Okay, and let's save this. All right, so now that that's been set up, we can decide how we're going to trigger our app. Now, I personally prefer to just do it on app mention. This way we don't have to worry about messages coming into the Slack channel, either from the bot or maybe they're just messages you don't want the bot to respond to. So we can be very deliberate and just say only if the bot is mentioned, then we actually trigger something. So we can actually chain some of these together now. So why don't we do this? We're going to trigger a Slack message, and this is a test email triggered by Slack. So what we're going to be doing here is we are triggering using a Slack trigger, which we've connected, right? That's going to be triggered by an app mention. So what that means is I'm going to type in at the bot name, right? Which I actually have to install first. So let's install our app. Add an app, and we need to do our integration demo. Okay, so there we go. So now we can say at n8n integration demo, and we're going to trigger when we send that message, it's going to trigger this, and the AI agent is going to. Actually, we don't even need the AI agent in this case. but we're going to do it anyway, and it's going to send an email to Gmail based on the setup we did previously. So let's try that out. Test workflow, and we're going to just say anything, test. Okay, now it's doing its thing. Email was sent. We can come back to our inbox and hello world. Okay, this email was triggered by Slack. So there we go. So anyway, that's the Slack setup, right? Two different ways to do it. One is with a trigger. And in order to do that, you're going to use the bot. You have to install an app to sort of get this bot to be set up. But if you just want to send simple messages like we saw earlier, then you can just connect to your Slack account directly. Okay, so let's move on. We are going to be looking at Facebook now. Let's add the Anthropic node back in just so I don't forget about it. Okay. So Facebook, like we mentioned, we are going to be looking at two different ways of doing this. So the first one is with the actual Facebook Graph API node, the built-in one. And the second one is the HTTP request. And you might want to use one or the other. Generally, it's probably a little bit easier to use the built-in node. But if you need a little bit more control over what you're doing, the HTTP request can be good as well. So let's open this up, and we are going to create a new credential. So it's going to be asking for an access token. So to do this, you actually have to, similar to Slack, you have to create an app. So let's do that now. We're going to come into developers.facebook.com/apps. So if you don't have a developer account, you're going to need to create that first. But once you do, you can create an app. So we're going to do that, create app. And we're going to give the app a name. So we'll just call it test integration. And we'll click next. Okay, so we're going to, in this case, select other. Click next. And we can say for you, it's a business. And you can select your business manager that you want to make sure the app is using. Log in. Okay, so now that we've made our app, what we're going to be doing is we need to add our marketing API as an app into, as a product into your app. So we'll do that. Okay, perfect. And now we can, we're going to select our permissions. So if you only want to read your data, you can just do these two. But if you also want to be able to create ads, manage your ads, then you're also going to want to provide this permission as well. So let's just do all of it for now. We'll get our token. And then you can take this token and copy it into here and save. Okay, so now that you've done that, all you have to do is fill out some of this information here. So we're going to use the default host URL. We're going to be using a GET request. So the difference between here, get is to retrieve information, post is to send information, right? So in this case, we're just going to be getting information from our ad accounts. We're going to use the latest version here. You're going to put your ad account ID here. And then in this case, we're going to use the Insights Edge, but you could be using campaign, ad set, ad, etc. This is sort of about understanding how the Facebook API works. And so the developers.facebook.com docs, like sort of this, all this documentation is going to be your friend, because understanding what kind of information you need to put here is going to be crucial, because setting it up here is going to be the difference between whether your your requests actually go through, or you get some sort of failure, because it's very specific in how it needs to receive that information. So that's the first part, just getting it to work properly. And then secondly, you're going to want to know it so that you know how to get the information you want. So even if it goes in properly, if you're not putting in the if you're not asking for impressions, for example, and you want impressions, you're just not going to get it. So the knowing so going through this documentation essentially is going to be important. So insights is just general information, but you can also get campaign information, ad set information, ad information, all of that. So if you've never worked with it before, then don't worry too much, because we've actually provided examples. So if you've watched one of our other videos, you may have seen this sub workflow here. We kind of shared how to set it up, what kind of information to pass into the Facebook API so that you get the information that you need. So we're not going to get into too much of that, because that's the understanding the Facebook API is it's a huge topic, and we're just not going to have time to do that in this video. But here's an example, right? We can get spend action values on this day. So why don't we try that and see how it works? So we are going to do a simple trigger here, connect these together, and let's test. Okay, we've got problems. Okay, it still wants us to have that fixed. Okay, so let's test this. Oh, I see. Okay, because we have our Slack trigger here. So I'm just going to delete this since we no longer need it. And let's do this. There we go. Okay, workflow executed successfully. Did we get data back? We did. So with this ad account and with this information, right? These are the queries for the fields that we want. We're getting back all this information here. Okay, so that's using the Facebook node, but you can actually use the HTTP request as well. So to do that, you would create the URL like this, and you can specify the ad account. And then again, this is insights, right? So in this case, we put the edge as insights here. When you're using the HTTP request, you actually put it in the URL instead. And so we need to specify header authorization. So we're going to be using a generic credential type. And then you can use a header auth, and then you can create a new credential. You could actually, so create a new credential. And then in this case, you're going to be typing in authorization, and you're going to be typing in bearer. So here, let me just put this in a notepad so it's a little bit easier to see. Okay, so let me bring in the notepad. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to type in bearer, and then space, and then you're going to paste your token there. So that's essentially what you want to put in there. So let's just close that. And you're going to put the value here as bearer space your token. So we'll save. Now we have our header. We're going to call this Facebook integration demo. Okay, so that's how you get your integration in. We'll close this out. So now we have generic credential, header auth, and this authentication we just did. And now we can set up our fields, our time range, etc. It's essentially the same information, but set up a little bit differently, right? So we're using query parameters here. And so you can have your fields and value, right? So fields, spend, action values. And you can see here, it's in this case, it's JSON, but it's the exact same information being passed through. So you could do it this way with HTTP request, and you can set up variables like we do here, but you could also do that in the JSON here if you like. So why don't we test it out? It should provide the same information. Let's just, there we go. So let's test workflow. Okay, executed successfully, and you can see we have our data here. Great. So that's how you do that for Facebook. And if you want to use, if you want to get campaign information, then you just use the campaigns edge. If you want to use ad set, then you use the ad sets edge. If you want to use the add creative, right? Add creatives edge and create Facebook ads, right? So all these different ways to use the Facebook API to create the assets you want. You just need to know how to set it up with the different fields, right? Whether you're using the HTTP request or you're using the Facebook node, you're going to have to visit this documentation to kind of see what sort of parameters and fields are available to use with it. But like I mentioned, we share workflows on this channel. So if you're just following along with some of our workflows, we'll already give that information to you so you know exactly what fields and parameters to use. All right. And finally, we've got our Shopify node. So similarly, we can use the Shopify node itself, right? So why don't we create a new credential? And this is going to be similar, right? We're going to need to set up an app into your Shopify store. So we're going to go into our Shopify store and we are going to go into apps, apps and sale channel settings. Let's develop app and let's create an app. Okay, so we're going to call this n8n integration test. We'll create our app. And then in here, we're going to want to configure admin API scopes. And this is where we set the permissions that we want the app to receive. So depending on what you want to do, let's say you want to check orders, you want to update orders, you want to create products, or you want to read products, you want to check customers, create discounts. It doesn't matter what it is that you want to do in Shopify. You could do pretty much everything with the API. But you do want to only just provide access to the things that you want to do, right? You don't want to provide too much access just in case, for whatever reason, your app might accidentally do something you don't want it to do. So let's say, for example, we only want to check our orders. So then we can just look up orders in the scopes and we can say we want to read orders and maybe we want to see the customers as well. So we can read customers and products, let's say. Read products, right? This way it's read only. We aren't changing anything. But like I mentioned, if you want to create an agent or a workflow that does update those things, then you can always provide that access. And you can change it later if you like. But for now, let's just do read access. Okay, so we'll save that. And then we'll go to API credentials. And then we'll install our app. And we're going to get our access token here. So we can copy this. I'm not actually sure if I can copy it directly like this. I might have to reveal first, then copy. So why don't we do that? We'll reveal, we'll copy. But you only get to see this once, right? So once you kind of navigate away from here, you're not going to be able to see this again. So if you need to write it down somewhere, keep it safe because you don't want other people to be using your access token to make changes on your store. So we're going to come back to our integrations. We're going to put access token right there. And then we are, sorry, not Slack here. So we're going to come to our secret key. We're going to show that, copy and paste that into our secret key here. You could also just press this button here to copy to clipboard. And then shop domain is going to be your shop domain, right? So in this case, prompted demo 2. There we go. and we can save. So we'll just actually call this Shopify access token integration demo. All right, save. Okay, so we have that all set up, and now we can just use it. So in this case, we're using the resource order, and we're going to get many. And yeah, okay, so why don't we just test that out? Where's our trigger? Right here. Let's test this out. Okay, got 11 items. Perfect. So we got all these items here. These are going to be the orders that are found in the store itself. We go to our orders tab. You can see here I've got 11 orders. And those are the 11 orders that we retrieved here. So you can see here you have access to orders and product. But if you want to do other things, right? Like you want to do something with your customers or you create discounts, the Shopify node isn't set up for that. So in order to make those types of changes, you need to do a custom API call. And then if you do that, it'll say use an HTTP request. So that's what this is here. So if you want to do anything besides product and orders, then we need to do an HTTP request. So to do that, you'll use a URL like this, right? So you're going to put your Shopify domain, admin API, the API version. This is 2023, but it should be 2025 because that's the latest version. Shop.json, and then you're going to use a predefined credential type. You're going to use a Shopify access token, and you're going to select this one, right? The one we just created, Shopify access token integration demo. Okay. And then we're going to sender query parameters using JSON. And so now you can set it up however you want. In this case, we're looking at our shop level information. So that's why we're using shop.json. So we can actually show how that works. Test workflow. And there we go. So we're getting some shop level information. But if we want to do other things, then you actually have to change that URL. So that's where understanding how the Shopify API comes in handy. So in this case, if you're doing order stuff like similar to the Facebook API, you're going to need to know what properties are in the order so that you can retrieve the information that you want. So for example, you might want the ID, you might want line items, you might want the name of it, stuff like that, right? But if you want to access the orders API, then you're going to need to use the proper URL for it. And to do that, you're going to use the endpoint orders.json. So, and there's other ways of doing it, right? So here are different endpoints that you can use. So for example, if you want to cancel an order, you can specify the order ID and cancel. Or if you want to close or open it, you just need the order ID. And you can do all these other things as well. So whether it's orders, products, or discounts, whatever it is that you want, you just have to use the proper endpoint and do the thing that you want to do with it. So for example, let's do orders.json. And then you would have to update the fields. I'm not going to do that right now, but you're going to have to update it so that it works properly. If I do this right now, it's just going to create it. Then we're going to get just this information here. So now that we've done that, let's move on into the chat models, right? So let's start off with OpenAI. We've got our OpenAI chat model here. This is what you would connect to your AI agent like that, right? And so why don't we create a new credential. Okay, so we need to apply an API key. So to do that, you need to go into your OpenAI, so platform.openai.com, settings, organization, API key. So you need to visit your API keys page, create a new secret key, test integration, and then we're going to put in n8n, or you could put default project, up to you. Create secret key. We'll copy that key, and then we are going to place it in here, and we'll save. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to rename this test integration. Save. Okay, now we are going to just test it out, right? We've connected our AI agent. We can kind of bring some things together. So why don't we send an email with some information from our agent, so that way we can chat to our chat model and then send this email with that information. So let's open a trigger, and let's just do a chat trigger here. And let's just place it right there, and we will connect our Gmail as well. So why don't we test this out? Let's give it a system prompt. Actually, no, that's probably good enough. I placed that in there earlier. So, okay, let's chat. So please send an email. Okay, so it's going to send an email, but it has fixed information right now. So when we come here, it's not actually going to share, it's not going to have any specific information. It's just going to say this email is triggered by Slack. But I want to run it because then we can actually see what's the output coming out of here. So instead of the message here, we can actually put the output as this. There we go. Right. And now we can say, send me an email and tell me an interesting fact. Right, so we're going to do that. We're going to trigger it. It's going to talk to OpenAI, and it's going to send an email. So let's see what happens. All right, sure thing. Here's a fun fact for you. Do you know that honey never spoils? There we go. Interesting fact. Right, so that's using the OpenAI chat model to pass that information. Well, first to read the chat that we sent it, and then it will use that information and send it to our email. Right, so that's OpenAI. Now we can do the same thing with Anthropic. If you want to use a different chat model, we can do that. Right, actually, before I even move on to that, in OpenAI, we've got GPT-4o Mini, but you've got all these other models from OpenAI too, right? So we've got smarter models, dumber models, cheaper models, more expensive models. You've got lots of options. Personally, I like to use GPT-4o Mini or GPT-4, 4o actually, but you've got other options. So, but if you like Anthropic better, like Claude, then you can use Anthropic. And so we'll come here, we'll create a new credential. And in here, we need to set an API key. So similar to OpenAI, we need to generate an API key. So we'll go over to the Anthropic console. So the console.anthropic.com, settings, keys, and we can create a new key. We'll put it into the default workspace, call it n8n integration demo, add. Okay, so we can copy our key, and we can head back to n8n and paste it in there and save. And there we go. Our connection tested successfully. Now, for both Anthropic and OpenAI, You're going to need to have some credits available in order for it to work properly. Otherwise, you might get some errors. Okay, so we can actually do the exact same thing. So why don't we, now that we're connected to Anthropic, we can send an email. So we can say send an email and tell me another interesting fact. So why don't we do that? Let's send that over and see what happens. Okay, so we got our email. We can see what happens. Okay, so we can see we have our new email, and we've got another fact. All right, short war, 38 minutes only. Okay. Okay, so finally, we have our OpenRouter model here, but before we go there, we can see all the different models that Anthropic has, right? So we've got these different Claude models. But with OpenRouter, what it does is it allows us to have access to all different models with a single API. So we can access OpenAI here. We can access Perplexity, Quen, Claude is in here as well. If we just scroll up, we should see it. Mistral, Meta, you got their Google ones, DeepSeek, Anthropic, right? So all of the different AI models with a single API, and you can choose the model that you want. Just makes it a little bit easier to work with instead of having to connect all these different APIs from the different providers. So they just, a bit of an aggregator is what they are. So we can go to OpenRouter, you create an account, you have to buy some credits, and then you can create a key, right? So you go to your API keys, right? OpenRouter.ai settings keys, create a key. We'll call it n8n integration demo. And we can have some sort of limit. So I will put a 1 there. Okay, so we copy this, and then we can place it into our new credential, paste it to our API key, save. Good. And we can now connect our model to OpenRouter. And we can say, send one last email with the most interesting fact in the world. We'll see what it sends us. Okay, so it's been sent. We will check our email for a new email coming in. Okay, one last fact for us. Octopuses have 3 hearts. Okay, so there we go. That's our last fact. Okay, so those are the essential n8n app integrations that we like to use. If there's an app that you use that you want to see an integration for, just let us know in the comments below. And as we mentioned earlier, as we build out more complex agents, we'll be integrating more apps, so we'll probably have a part 2 at some point in the future. But you should now have the foundation you need to build out the agents we share on this channel, or even building your own agents. So keep building, and I'll see you in the next one.